Hey guys, Tyler here. So I had a request on how I pack some of my food, so I'm going to get into specifically that. I've been wanting to do a video like this for a while actually, but it's kind of hard to do. I don't want to go out and buy a week's worth of food just to do a video on it, so I've been waiting for a trip. The Baja trip is here, so let's talk about how I pack food. I think a vehicle this size is a good example on how to pack accordingly. Now Baja is going to be like a 9-day trip, but we have to plan a little differently than we normally would. But I think this is a better example of how we can do this because a lot of people don't stay away from stores and stuff. My preference is to pack up before the trip and not have to stop anywhere, but it doesn't always work out that way. So for this trip, we can only take certain foods over the border. We can't take fresh fruits and vegetables. And from what I've read and what I've heard, I can't take fresh meats as well. So we've got 4 or 5 days of meals packed, and those meals or what I'm going to go over and how we normally do this, because generally speaking, it's all the same thing. And so let's dive into how I'm doing this exactly. I eat like a savage. Natalia has dietary restrictions as of last year, so now we have to kind of plan our meals in a different way, but it's still going to work pretty much the same way. There's a lot of people out there that don't see the value in a refrigerator for their 4-wheel drive. And I understand that they're expensive, but the advantages here, I'll try to make some of these advantages pretty clear. I think a lot of what people don't consider whenever they're comparing a $400 Yeti to a $700 refrigerator. Yes, a Yeti has ice and it'll hold it for 7 days, but if you have to put everything inside of that cooler before you leave to retain ice for 7 days, it becomes a problem. If you have a bunch of drinks and they're warm in the back of your truck, and now you need to put those in there because you've eaten some of your food and you got more room, when you put those in there, your ice is going to melt immediately. I'm pushing the refrigerator thing because you can eat so much better, and it's better for food prep because it's just like home. A lot of things like Natalia's sake here. This does not need to be refrigerated until after it's been opened. So there's things like that where after we've gone through a couple days of food, we can shift things around and now we have more room. So after I'm packing, I'll put a bunch of drinks in there, put all my food in there, and if I need more room, I can just take some of the drinks out because you can cool it back down. You don't have to worry about ice. So that's a big thing. So on that note, a lot of what I do is I have a little container down here. I've got these containers that I usually stuff extra drinks in. These are all just going to be, obviously the ambient temperature. I've got 2 of these that I stash under here, and these are just going to be some beers that I know I'm not going to be able to get in Mexico that I really want. I've talked about these before. These are incredible. Anyway, good job, Vale. I have certain things that I set aside, warm drinks. It's really nice to have the refrigerator. It's a big thing. So enough sales pitch on refrigerators. Okay, so let's dive into my food kit. Oh, she's heavy. So this is just a front runner box. Got a couple cutting boards on top there. I'll link some of this stuff. But yeah, so what I have here, and I have the GoPro set up to where you can kind of see down in here. Okay, so I always bring a couple bags of coffee. I get the bone stuff just because I got spoiled after I started drinking it. So as far as milks go, if you put milk in pretty much anything, if you got somebody, if you got kids that eat cereal, we eat cereal, or Natalia does these breakfast shakes. And so for stuff like this, we need milk. We prefer non-dairy, so we do the oat milk thing. So don't be afraid of the non-refrigerated milks. They taste plenty good. The thing we all know about camping is everything tastes better when you're camping. So don't be afraid of not getting like the best refrigerated milk, because we all know that a milk container takes up a ton of room. You don't want to take all that space up in your refrigerator. Even this is bigger than I would like. They sell the smaller ones, but in this particular circumstance, we're using more of it on this trip, I think. So we just got 3 of these. One's in the fridge. We have 2 others, and so we're good to go. The thing that we get into is like, I will use Spanish style rice, and these are the microwave packs. So whenever you're using these, I'm not going to say that this is totally legit, but I'm assuming that if you can microwave this bag, instead of using a microwave, you just put it in boiling water. And yes, you could just pour rice into a pot and deal with it that way. The benefit here is one less thing to clean up. We're going into the desert on the beach. To make rice, it would take more water to clean the pot than it would just to put a little in there and boil it. And then I will use that boiled water to clean other things. So I kind of double cycled my water, unless, food spills into it, obviously. But either way, so we double up on that. So we have a 90-second rice bag, and we're just going to use this and boil it, double boil it. I like to do that. Okay, so the other thing I personally get into is I get into oatmeal just because it's easy. I don't do hot oats. usually, just because it's usually summertime when I'm doing this kind of stuff. Try using oatmeal with cold milk because it's one less step in the morning. Put this in a cup, pour some cold milk into it, and just let it sit for a little bit longer, like 10-15 minutes while you're getting your camp ready to go or something like that if you're moving that morning. And it's gonna make your life easier. You don't have to cook anything, and it's getting ready while you're doing other stuff, and then you can eat it really easy. I always like to bring a backup meal. These are what I use for hunting. This is actually, this is Green Belly Meals, and this is actually an entire meal pack. And it's basically like a big bar. It's one big square bar that breaks into 3. I really like these things when I'm hunting because I don't have to cook. I don't have to deal with it. We're so tired on those trips that I don't want to worry about anything, especially cooking. Sometimes I'll do a mountain house, but these are good enough. And these have like 600 calories, 645 calories in this bar. And these are really good. You just got to drink water with it, but it's they're pretty good. There's several different flavors. I like bringing stuff like this always just as a just in case scenario, or if like the refrigerator failed or something like that, we have something to eat for the night. We're not going to starve out there. We don't got to turn around. Okay, so we're going to be doing 2 nights of pasta before we get to Mexico. So I've got some gnocchi here. This stuff does not require refrigeration. Then I've got another pasta that requires being frozen. You could probably refrigerate it, it wouldn't matter. But the freezer normally has more space because there's less stuff getting frozen. So anyway, we're doing 2 nights of pasta. So we got 1 jar of marinara sauce. So we can split this in between 2 different meals. And because of that, we're saving a ton of space. Now, the other thing we're doing for this trip is we are doing nachos and tacos. And this is ridiculous because we're going to Mexico. So obviously we're gonna be eating nachos and tacos and stuff, but we bought some because we're kind of excited about Mexico. So we've kind of got the Mexico theme thing going. So we've been eating stuff like that. So for nachos, we bought some refried beans and then a few other minor things. But anyway, point being is that we're gonna buy chips and tortillas in San Felipe when we get there, just because of course they're gonna have better ones there. But we bought things that can be used. Half this can will be used for one night, half the can will be used for another night. Probably unnecessary. We can probably get that where we're going, but sometimes it's just, I don't know, we're grocery shopping, so we bought stuff. I'm getting all wound up. Natalie doesn't like fish. I like fish. I'm gonna be spear fishing for fish, and so I'm planning on eating those fish. So for those nights, Natalie wanted to get something else, so she got a soup. So things like this are super easy. Doesn't have to be refrigerated. You can store it as dry goods. And again, this is a microwave container. But for a lot of things, you can just double boil this. Pull the wrapper off probably. And I can use the MSR reactor, boil this, and then she will have a hot soup, and there's basically no cleanup. And then you can use that water for other things. So that's what we got going in there. And then of course I have my little mini bottle. I'm gonna be drinking mostly tequila, but I never leave without whiskey. So I got a little baby bottle. But anyway, so yeah, that is my dry goods, at least as far as that goes. I've got some hamburger buns here. There's gonna be more food we need to get, but a lot of these meals actually don't require anything outside of this box. So we have 4 dinners in here, and then we have our breakfast stuff in here because she's gonna be doing shakes. I'm gonna be doing like oatmeal. Okay, so the next thing is my little drawer here. This is home built. A lot of people think this is built by DFG. It's not. I built it. I built this a long time ago actually for intents of going to Baja at some point because I wanted a metal box that I could lock something up in. Really all I use it for the most part, are just things that are easy to get to. So I've got some of Natalia's breakfast drinks in here, and then I've got morning stuff, because usually in the mornings, me particularly, I don't want to deal with stuff. I'm usually just wanting to have some coffee and chill out. So I put a lot of easy to get to things in here because it's just a good spot for it. I keep some cups in here. Those are always easy to get to. Some fire starters, and then some of my dry goods, the morning stuff and snack food. So if we stop on the side of the road, I don't have to dig through the boxes. So anyway, kind of a minor thing, but I do keep a lot of that in here, and then it just makes my life easier. And I keep one of my things of coffee in here as well, because all of my coffee stuff is easy to get to. I've got my filter in here, and so I can make cold brew, put it in the fridge, and it's not a hassle of getting boxes in and out, because sometimes you're not set up at a campsite. You're just parked there for the night, wake up in the morning, drink some coffee, on the road. That's just how I like to do it, but I do like to keep some of that food in here. And then, like I said, with the oatmeal, I'll put it in my hydro flask cup, put some milk in there, set the lid on top of it, leave it for 10, 15 minutes, and then it has absorbed all that and it's ready to eat. So now the refrigerator stuff is the big one. So like these mozzarella balls, we'll be able to use these for multiple different meals. Cheese, same thing, you know, basic stuff like that. But as far as drinks go, like I said, I have one milk in here. I'm a cold brew drinker. I don't really drink hot coffee that much anymore. I don't have any made right now, but I keep the cold brew thing in there all the time, so I just make sure there's room for that. The other good thing about cold brew is you can brew it at room temperature. You could make cold brew throughout the day, put it in the fridge at night. Basic stuff here in the refrigerator, that's not the goods. My freezer is what I use for a lot of prepping. The pasta, like I was talking about, frozen solid. Ice, we're going to the beach. Margaritas, I'm definitely making ice. Burgers, so I'm gonna be doing beef patties, and Natalia is gonna be doing these veggie patties. So the cheese packs will be used for both lunch sandwiches, and this cuts down tremendously on space in the refrigerator. And then the other thing that I like to do, this time we got frozen waffles. Waffles are a huge pain in the ass to make at camp, so I just buy frozen ones. The other thing is when we plan these out, we know how much chicken we eat, and I know how much beef I eat. So for some of our meals, for some of these pastas, we're doing chicken. So Natalia's got some version of chicken nuggets, and then I've got chicken. So we bag up, instead of bringing an entire bag of this stuff, you're just wasting space. So we just bag them up individually, and then you can fit it into your freezer or your refrigerator that much easier. Something I experimented with a couple years ago, and I've been doing ever since, is I make frozen egg packs. And that sounds really weird, and it kind of is weird, but they're awesome. So these are basically an omelet. What I put in here is, these ones have some deer sausage, spinach, cheese, and peppers and onions and stuff. And so what you do is you crack eggs into one of these vacuum seal packs. You could do it with freezer Ziploc bags as well, just make sure and get all of the air out of it. Freezer bags can be used to boil. They're thicker plastic, so you can do the same thing. I make these omelet packs, and then I put these in my MSR reactor. You could use just a benchtop stove, any stove you have, boil it in a little bit of water, and when this is done, a perfect omelet will roll out. The thing is it'll swell up, and you wanna let it cook a little longer than you'd think. There's a little bit of a learning curve to it. But this means that I don't have to carry around eggshells and stuff. I don't have to cook meat in the morning, peppers in the morning. Sometimes I like to do that stuff, but because of space and because I like eggs, I will freeze them like this. You cannot refrigerate them. If you refrigerate them, they will not be the same. They go really bad. If you don't have a freezer, just get the egg carton packs. And then what you could do is you could pre-make your peppers and onions and stuff. You'd have to do it closer to the trip, but you could put them into Ziploc bags and then just pour some of that in the egg mix in the morning of, boil it the same way. You can watch these swell up in the boiling water, and then you cut the top off, dump it out, put some sour cream on it, some green onions or something, and you have a perfect omelet that rolls out, and all you had to do is boil water. So that's just something I like to do just because I don't like dealing with carrying eggs along for the entire trip. And so what I do is I split up my breakfast days. Some days, you know, you're just feeling something heavier than another. So some days I will do these, and other days I will do oatmeal, or I'll do something simple like that. Anyway, so that is one of my tricks for taking eggs along. This is really handy. So I made some of these that don't have meat in them as well, and then I've got the carnivorous versions of them. So obviously in certain situations, as we start to run out of frozen goods, sometimes I just alter the plan and then I just turn the freezer off and use this as an entire fridge. But for planning out trips, I prefer to have the freezer option, just because having meats and having the omelets and having ice, for me, I really prefer that. Okay, so the next thing I want to go over is my cook bag, and this is the Blue Ridge Overland Gear one. I'm sure you guys have seen this a million times. Okay, so in this bag I keep lighter and cleaning stuff for dishes, and in this one I keep regular spices. I buy these little containers. You don't need a ton of, you don't need a full size anything, and usually it comes in glass and it's heavy and it's bulky, and I don't want to worry about breaking glass stuff, so I don't use those. So I've got pepper, garlic salt, Creole, meat spice, just like a generic meat spice, and that's all I keep in there, and those are my spices. And so that's pretty much my primary cook thing, and then I've got oils too. I almost forgot to go over these things, and these are in my Front Runner food box, and this is what I keep all my oils in. This is syrup, just pancake syrup, olive oil, and then I have others in here, but these are the sizes that I use. Actually, I have one that's bigger than this. But the point being is that these are Nalgene containers, and the reason I do this is because these will not leak whenever you go over a pass. If you buy a standard syrup container or any kind of container, I've never found one that doesn't leak oil. This is coconut oil. These come with a individual like plastic wrap underneath this cap. Natalie likes cooking with coconut oil, so I brought that. Once we open this, we'll keep it in the fridge. but it's dry goods. So anyway, we cook with that oil, with this oil, with this oil, and I also have avocado oil in there too, just because I get a little carried away. But anyway, for any of your liquids that don't need to be refrigerated, this is the way to do it. If they're refrigerated, then you don't have to worry about it as much because they'll get in the bottom of the fridge versus the bottom of your vehicle. And so it's a little less of a concern, but this is for sure how to do this. Now you can get these on Amazon, and I'll try to find the links for these different containers. These are Nalgene brand, but they don't have the branding on them. And the thing about Nalgene, and I'm sure you're familiar with Nalgene, it's the water containers, the plastic water containers. The Nalgene brand does science products first, or that's at least how they started. And so their water bottles and stuff came after the fact. So these are pretty durable. These are for scientific use, but these particular ones don't have the Nalgene brand on them. I found these on eBay several years ago, and I bought like 12 of each of these sizes. Actually, I think I got 24 of this size. And I got like 12 of these and a bunch of this size too. This is just coffee creamer for the times that I do drink hot coffee. But anyway, I bought these packs for like 10 bucks for like 12 of them, which was insane. And now to find the same thing, they're much more expensive. You might be able to find them on there. I don't know if it must have been some lab that was selling them. They'd never been used, were brand new, came in a closed box. But to buy these with the Nalgene logo on it is pretty expensive. And I found these same containers at my local surplus place, and this thing is like $6 for the bottle. But these are very durable, will not leak for sure. I've been using them a long time. The only oil residue you can see here is just from them being opened and not cleaned off and closed up. So anyway, this 100% is the way to travel, because with olive oil, you don't need a giant bottle of olive oil. This has probably been used for the last year or two, just like the salt and pepper and all of that. You don't need a full thing of it. I've got a bigger thing of vegetable oil in case we fry fish or something, but for just cooking, I mean, this, I'm going to Baja, I'm not even thinking about adding more to this. It's unnecessary. You know, sometimes we cook really fancy, like I like making elk steak, Philly cheesesteaks at camp sometimes. But with a big trip like this, it's harder to do things like that just because I have more stuff to pack. There's less room. And so if it's a 3 or 4 day trip, I get really fancy, but I still like to have quick meals. So the way we do it is because we've tried so many different things over the years. Sometimes they're a hit and sometimes it's super bland, and they just aren't as good. But the things that are good, I keep a note of. So I have a note in my phone app that I've kept. So I've built a table over the years. And what this table has are things that I really like to eat at camp. When it comes time for a trip, it seems like my brain just goes blank on what did we eat last time? What should we make for meals? And you know, we always try different stuff here and there, but I like having a chart of lunches, dinners, and breakfast options, as well as drinks. I've got recipes for different like cocktails and stuff like that. Not only do I have the tables that have all of these different options on there, but below it, I put what all we use. So if it's a specific brand of chicken or if it's a specific brand of pasta, something like that, I keep track of all that stuff. My elk sandwiches, for instance, I have an exact list of everything that I put on them, the best time that I made them, so I can recreate that. And you know, it's just kind of like a recipe book, but it's specific for camping. I know that if I was able to pack that all into the FJ at one point for a trip, I can do it again. And so these are usually meals that are not quite as fancy as if you're cooking something at home because you're leaving 1 or 2 things out. It's kind of a simplified version of what we would cook at home with things that we can get that are off the shelf. Some of them do not require refrigeration, few of them do. This just opens up a lot of options for different foods you can have while you're traveling. And then if you're in a pinch and you're going to the grocery store, like I know this is gonna happen when we go to San Felipe, we're gonna stop in the grocery store and we're gonna be like, what all do we need to get? You've already bought a bunch of stuff, you're on a trip, you got other stuff going on, you're worried about getting to a place. We're gonna be wondering, what do we need to buy? So I keep track of that stuff too. We went grocery shopping, bought all of this stuff. We're gonna do tacos one night and nachos another night. So some of our ingredients are split in between those 2 nights of dinners. In one of my notes, I have it specifically listed in San Felipe, we need to get this, this, and this, because I know at our grocery store, we didn't get that. So even if you're traveling 9 days or 14 days to some other state, or you're just moving around the United States, it's nice to know and kind of have inventory listed of what you have or what you do not have. So that way you don't get out to somewhere and you're gonna make burgers or something, all of a sudden you're just like, oh, we didn't have cheese for this, or we didn't have buns for this. Because especially when you're not at home and you're shopping at a different store, you seem to forget things more because it's not laid out in the way you're used to. Usually you go to the same store every week or every 2 weeks or whatever, and you go in, you know where this is, you know where that is, you know you're gonna walk by this, and oh, every time I walk by that, I remember it. That doesn't happen when you're traveling. Some stores are really poorly put together. So having an app like this is great. And then I can also share this with Natalia. And so if we need to edit things, we can edit back and forth, and it updates on both of our phones. So that is something huge that has helped me over the years. And I mean, this is a really long note. And then for this specific trip, it's probably illegible because, like my sister says, I have serial killer handwriting, but I have handwritten things from using like the Apple Pencil thing. But I went through and made some notes for this specific trip. Omelets, oatmeal, all that stuff is listed on here. And then we've got our dinner ideas and the different things that those dinners will be sharing for every meal. The big thing is getting good at dry goods. Having a refrigerator is huge. You don't necessarily need it, but it'll make your life easier. Where we're going, it's probably gonna see 90 degrees. So every drink you do not have in your cooler or in your refrigerator is gonna be 90 degrees or close to it. So throwing that into a cooler, you know, I just can't. I really do think the refrigerator is the coolest thing that I've done to this FJ. Everything else aside, a refrigerator has changed camping for me. So I highly recommend investing in one. Look at the Set Powers. I did a review on them recently. I think it was like 400 bucks or something like that. I don't remember the exact pricing, sorry. And then the Snowmasters go way up there. The National Lunas go way up there. But look at the refrigerators and see what fits for you, because it will make your camping experience that much better. I really do think that's the way to go. But anyway, that's just a quick video on some of my food planning. Doing it like this will take up less space. It's less of a hassle. It makes your life easy. But I'm telling you, keep track of the things that you really liked at camp. That was good. Write it down. It only takes a second. It's awesome to have, because then if Jesse hits me up and is like, hey man, let's go out for the weekend, I don't even have to think about, oh, what am I gonna eat this weekend? Just right away, I can just come up with some stuff. Because sometimes we get busy, and for me anyway, I just go blank and I'm like, oh, what should I eat? And I don't want to eat hot dogs all the time. So I've got this, and it works out pretty good. I hope that was helpful in some way. I know a lot of you new guys are wondering how a lot of this stuff goes. I've been asked this before. So if you have any questions about any of this stuff, please drop the comments below. I'm happy to answer anything you've got. I'll put some links down for my cases for some of these food companies and stuff like that. Clicking some of the links below will help the channel out. It doesn't cost you anything extra, just gives me a small kickback, and it helps, you know, keep the videos and stuff going. I really do appreciate you watching, and until next time.